Hello and welcome back to Snapping Towels post quarterfinal edition, episode 17, whatever you want to call it. I'm Cam Williams alongside my partner, as always, Kyle Foote. Kyle, talk to me.
I had a great day personally. Saw Sharks, South Bay, the K1s, kindergarten and first grade collected their final win of the season, a 11-10 burner down at El Segundo campus. Fun fact, right across the street from the Lakers training facility.
I'm talking to the head coach, right?
No big deal, correct. And truth be told, the parents tried to have me fired after game one for lack of coaching, which was completely and utterly unacceptable. And it was noted. Luckily, Maddie Buss, a guest and a boss of mine running the program down here, had my back, as she knows the lacrosse mastermind I am. And we ended up improving, and that's all that matters. So I'm happy about it. How'd your Sunday go?
My Sunday was good. Wish the quarterfinal games had been slightly more entertaining. We got a good one out of Cornell, Delaware. However, as Kyle and I have joked about 4 or 5 times this year, why are we even doing this if Maryland is just going to absolutely buzzsaw everybody that they play? It seems to be a foregone conclusion since, I don't know, early March that Maryland's going to be the last team standing. Let's hope that's not the case. Not that we don't want Maryland to win, but we want to see some competitive games this coming weekend at the Final Four. As mentioned last week, we had a surprise on tap for our listeners. Kyle is flying from Los Angeles to JFK Friday night, and we are going to make the trip up to East Hartford for the semifinal games on Saturday. Snapping Towels will be in the stands. Again, no days off here at Snapping Towels. But yeah, can't wait to be a part of my first Final Four in person since 2006.
Yeah, the last time I was at the Final Four was Philly 2016 when the Hounds made a run at it and lost to the white hot Tar Heels.
UNC, yep.
Yeah, that's the last. But I'm excited for the smaller stadium. I never really understood why they did big NFL stadiums. I think with tri-state teams in the mix, I think it's going to be a packed house up in East Hartford. I think it's very easy for these fan bases to get there. And I'm excited. I can't wait. I'm going to catch the town. We got some Connecticut State playoff action for lacrosse as well. So I'm really just strapping on the leather helmet and getting my boots muddy. The amount
It's that time of year,
watch.
folks. It's that time of year. It's ring season, and there's nothing like being at these games. Yesterday in Hempstead, wonderful venue for the game. I think the crowd was a bit underwhelming. Only 5,800 people showed up. I think the first day in the tri-state area in the 90s in 2022, it hit 92 degrees on Long Island yesterday. I'm sure on the turf it was triple digits for those kids. But Rutgers Penn was definitely an entertaining game. Great day to be a tender if you were in Hempstead yesterday. The goalies really showed out. Colin Kurse and Patrick Birkinshaw were on another level. Really seemed to have oceanfront real estate in every shooter's head. Ultimately, Colin Kurse prevailed, had a hell of a day, and leading his team to the Final Four, Rutgers' first Final Four in program history.
I love when history is made, especially in this game. It's the landscape needs it. It's growing. It's only a plus that two Big Ten teams are in the Final Four. That's kind of a rarity in itself. But yeah, I think Rutgers really showed some offensive depth. A lot of different names on the score sheet, and then their usuals had great games as well. And on the other side of the ball, I think Penn played a great game. I think if Sam Hanley's 100%, it's an overtime Penn win.
Yeah, Penn played a great game defensively. Rutgers is really impressive. Their depth is pretty unbelievable. And in the shot clock era, to hold Rutgers to only 11 goals, Patrick Birkinshaw did such a phenomenal job all game. BJ Farrar did an excellent job matching feet with Ross Scott all game. One thing that I think is really interesting that probably goes unnoticed or maybe not talked about enough. Penn had to bump BJ Farrar down to close defense because they felt as though that was the best matchup they had for Ross Scott's quickness. And honestly, just Rutgers forcing Penn's hand for that little coaching adjustment, I think cost the Penn Quakers 3 to 5 opportunities that they would usually get from BJ Farrar sparking transition, and in a close
No
2-goal
doubt.
game like this, that's a big difference.
You
Even though
gotta
Ross
think.
Scott only had 1-1 in the box score, like that's just Ross Scott's presence, right? I think really kind of changed the complexion of the game.
I mean, yeah, he did have 8 shots, so he was getting some looks. It's not like he was shut down at all, but you got to think his 8-goal performance against Harvard really forced that move.
Yep.
Small, quick, BJ Farrar, small and quick. Personally, I don't like the overcoaching move. I think you have a system down there that's been working all year, clearly. You've faced small, fast guys before. I don't think late in May you hit the panic button and pull this heroic coaching move. Again, I'm not watching these kids every day in practice. Sure, I think that is a good idea, a good theory, but I think, like your point, I thought it was an excellent point. You lose the transition and you lose your best LSM. It's way different to cover a midi coming out of the box than it is a attackman running from GLE and wings. I think it's a completely different position.
I think BJ Farrar is more than capable of playing close defense, but I agree. He's
the other way around. The kid, the second string LSM,
of course,
is then guarding these very talented dodging midfielders from Rutgers. Shane Knobloch had a day in himself.
Yeah, Shane Knobloch's disgusting, and came through with a hat trick. It also definitely worth noting, and Kyle and I haven't discussed this in a while. We discussed it very early in the year, and we said how terrible would it be if this had a big impact on an NCAA tournament game. But the ridiculous push from behind crease rule, whatever you want to call it or label it,
happened again, and we knew it would happen late in May. We knew it.
So basically, in the second quarter, Penn,
happened.
Penn had a great take, buried on a nice take, or in and around the crease, and a Rutgers pull just pushed this kid from behind.
It was a tap-in.
Exactly. And pushed this kid from behind. Penn would have gone up 4-3. It was a goal, right? In everybody's book, it's a goal. Penn would have gone up 4-3. Instead, the goal gets wiped. Penn goes man up, pisses away the man up opportunity. I don't remember if it was an unforced turnover or Rutgers forced the turnover. Anyway, Rutgers went and scored on the next possession. So it was a 2-goal swing. Rutgers ended up going up 4-3. And in such a tight game like this, such a meaningful tight game with two evenly matched teams, that lead change in the second quarter can ultimately be, a deciding point in the game. And it's really, really too bad that it happened that way.
Yeah. Just from our viewing, I think it's happened in most of the big games we've seen, at least once, especially early on. It probably happens all over the league, especially in games we don't have eyes on. I'm really curious to see how the committee changes it, because I think it's a must. Essentially, what I like to see happen is if he hits it, the goal stands, push is wiped out. If he misses it, the push stands and they go man up.
Yeah.
It shouldn't. Yeah. Like if it's
basically
a goal,
anything aside from what they have in place now.
Yeah. The two other options, call missed goal, penalty happens because, probably missed it because he got two-handed in the back. And And then the other option is what happened. He hits the goal, gets thrown into the, and also the problem with this is the goal mouth wasn't in play.
Right.
It was like way on the left side. It was more towards the crease than the goal mouth. So it wasn't even like he was diving towards the goalie. It was a shove that landed the play on the outside of the edge of the right side of the goal mouth. So yeah, no, it's a problem, and I hope it doesn't happen in the final for the championship. But if it does, honestly, the rules committee could easily step in and fix the rule at any time, and they choose this barbaric way of waiting till the end of the year. So like essentially a season could be lost with these rules.
Yeah, it's safe to say the rule will be changed this offseason. I have full confidence in that. I would have been totally fine with, in fact, a proponent of changing it midseason. That
Why
obviously
not? Like,
that's unlikely. Um, we have inside sources that have told us that Sam Hanley suffered a lower body injury in practice this week, and he didn't look 100%. I'll give Rutgers a lot of credit. Sam Hanley, Penn has done such a good job of timing their substitution game up so well, where Sam Hanley is usually the third midi to come out of the box, and he gets that ball really high up towards the midline, receives the pass and is coming down with an absolute full head of steam against the pole, short stick. Who cares? He doesn't care at all. And it's like, okay, this kid's going to create a look no matter what. Rutgers did what I'm not sure why any other team hasn't done it this year, but Rutgers was meeting him they were in his hands at the midline with a pole pretty much every time. Sam Hanley, again, didn't look 100%, looked a little hobbled, but Rutgers, give them credit. I mean, they were in Sam Hanley's airspace immediately when he stepped out of the box. And that kind of changed Penn's rhythm. That kind of messed Penn's rhythm up, changed the complexion of the game. And then halfway through the third quarter, I think partly because Sam Hanley wasn't 100% and partly because Rutgers was kind of neutralizing him coming out of the midfield with that little adjustment. Mike Abbott, Penn's offensive coordinator, put him down in attack for the last quarter and a half of the game.
well, that makes sense. Now a lower body injury, limited steps, so I'm on the field to get shots. Yeah, what we say last episode on how to guard Sam Hanley?
Set the edge.
Get up at the top of the box and just run with him, make a little track me until you have to slide, and then he can see, the slides. No one's surprised by it. You can see it the whole way, but if the offense is surprised, neither is the defense. They're rotating behind him, and yeah, I thought that was a perfect way to figure out a little way to throw him off his game. Obviously, it doesn't help that he has a lower body injury.
Yeah, we were definitely on the Quaker train all year, but got to give Rutgers credit. They put together a hell of a season, put together a heck of an out-of-conference schedule to prepare themselves for this tournament. They've done a great job. I think their roster is incredibly impressive.
I thought Mitch Bartolo too, playing his former team that I believe he was a captain at.
Yep, he's a Penn captain.
And really letting the game come to him. I thought it was a fantastic job because a lot of kids could get out of their game in one of these kind of situations. I thought he was poised. He buried shots. He was doing everything he needed to do. He wasn't doing too much. And I think it boded very well for the Rutgers offense.
Agreed. And we don't want to make too much of these little micro stories. But Anish and Kark were actually saying that, during the week, he had several conversations with Sean Lully at Duke just to talk to him a little bit about, playing their former team, playing against their former team. I'm sure that Sean Lully shed some wisdom and helped Mitch Bartolo a little bit there. But yeah, no, Rutgers, again, they've done a heck of a job. They brought in a boatload of transfers and built a great team this year. And really, Rutgers has become a really formidable program in the last 5 to 7 years, kind of starting with the Kieran McCardle era into Jules Henneberg and all those teams that kind of got snubbed the NCAA tournament, and last year losing by one in the quarterfinals and now finally breaking through to the Final Four. Always fun to see new blood in the Final Four. And, we're lucky enough to have some of that new blood on the show today. So we're going to kick it to our interview with Rutgers attackman Ross Scott. Joining us is junior All-American and All-Big Ten attackman Ross Scott. As of yesterday, is Final Four bound after an epic win against the Penn Quakers in Hempstead, Long Island. Ross, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Big time. Ross, something on the podcast we kind of do with our guests. We kind of get an origin story on how they started playing and what kind of drew them to the game. So if you'd enlighten us on how you got involved, that'd be sweet.
Yeah. So growing up, I always played hockey. My dad was a big hockey player, and he was getting me into hockey and all that. So we always kind of liked action sports like that, fast-paced, fast-moving sports. And I kind of on the West Coast. I grew up kind of in it's a small town, but it was actually very popular for lacrosse. They had a lot of success in the past and a lot of good players coming out of there. So one day my neighbors, one of my good family friends were outside playing lacrosse. They're a little bit older than me. And I thought it looked really fun. And I tried to pick up a stick and I didn't look back since. So they gave me a little stick with zip ties holding the mesh together. And I went to my first lacrosse practice in all hockey pads and it was great. And I loved it. And here I am now.
That's awesome. What town, if our listeners don't know where you're from?
I'm from West Lynn. It's a little city outside of Portland, Oregon, probably about 20 minutes away.
And you mentioned a lot of good players that come through there. Can you name a few of them?
Yeah, Colin Squires for the Whipsnakes. I got to play with him my freshman year of high school. Ryan Close, who played on Lehigh a few years back.
Yep.
And a few others.
Love it. Well, speaking of Oregon, what was it like playing against another All-American from Oregon yesterday in Sam Hanley?
Yeah, it's crazy now. A lot of the teams I get to go against in college, I get to play against a guy I know back from home, which is really cool. And I mean, Maryland with Ajax and Princeton with Alex Slusher and of course Penn with Sam Hanley. So it's a really cool experience being able to see Oregon guys on that big stage and guys like Sam Hanley, who are obviously so dominant in the sport and so good. It's really cool. But, once you're on that field, it's you guys are at battle. So it's a lot of fun.
Where you're from. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we saw, early in the season, it was a headline for us that Rutgers pulled in 13 kids from the transfer portal, a lot being grad students. Can you talk to us about how it's been kind of having them and integrating these kids coming from all different programs? And, I think each program does their thing a little bit differently. So if you have all these kids that are so used to doing something from their past 4 years, and then they're coming to a new locker room, kind of new vibe, you talk to us about that.
Yeah, I think we've kind of gotten a reputation for getting a lot of transfers in the portal, and I think it's something our team has been really good with, and welcoming guys and getting them up to speed with what we do, and it's also great with the recruiting that Coach Breck does. I think he makes sure he gets the right people for the team and make sure that they gel with all the guys, and I think there's never really any problems. All the guys that he brings in, they join in the team perfectly. I mean, we all love them. They're immediately a part of the family, and it's really easy when we get there. And when you have that long fall together, and you get a grind with each other, and when we're doing conditioning and lifting every morning, I think it builds a lot of character. It builds a lot of team chemistry, and it's been really fun getting able to play with amazing players like Ronan Jacoby and Mitchell Bartolo and all those transfers.
Oh yeah. I agree. When you're in the trenches, there's nothing that can get you closer.
Seriously.
So one thing that's gotten a ton of play on every single broadcast that Rutgers has been on this year is the Ross Scott, Colin Kirst morning coffee routine. So if you could just give us like a little bit of insight on that, what's your favorite type of coffee? Anish was actually chirping you yesterday for your favorite type of coffee, but if you could just talk to us about this morning routine, we'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, I mean, ever since the fall started, Colin and I have been we've been getting ourselves into a pot of coffee pretty much every single morning, and eventually it just kind of became a routine where at like 8:30 to 9 every morning, one of us would get up early, make the pot, and then we just kind of sit down, and whether it's in the backyard or kitchen table, just kind of talk shop, hang out, have our pot of coffee, and before you know it, you're having 3 or 4 cups of coffee, so you're wired. So, I don't know. It's just something we kind of did. I didn't think it was gonna catch like that, but I'd say our favorite pot of coffee is, I don't know. We like the Tim Hortons. We like the Dunkin'. I like Pete's a lot. I think that might be my favorite.
Okay.
But
West Coast guy, Pete's, of course.
yeah, and plus you could get them at Costco a couple like last month, pretty cheap. I think it's mostly just what you can get in the biggest amount for as cheap as possible. We even like Folgers. We love ourselves some Folgers too, just because
Just
good price on it. Good price.
working man.
Yeah.
Working man's coffee. That's probably why Anish can't relate.
Yeah.
Over at those bougie coffee shops.
Yeah, Anish definitely hits his pumpkin spice latte at least once a week.
Dude, speaking of Colin Kurst, has he mentioned this euphoric state he's in and the way he's playing right now? Because he's probably the hottest goalie in the country, and he seems to flip that switch when this time of year comes around and really is a standout. You guys talk? Has that been from all the coffee you've been drinking, or?
I don't even know if it's from all the coffee we've been drinking. He's been playing amazing. He's such a good leader for this team. He's really just a role model for all of us. He's one of the most humble guys I've ever been around in my life, and there's no one more deserving of success. He stays after practice and gets shots every single day. It's really amazing to watch him work and how much we put into him and all the extra work and time he puts into it. You know he really cares, and he's such a good captain, so humble. We all knew this was going to happen, and we have so much trust in that guy that it's not even a surprise for us.
Love that.
Yeah, I mean, anything can happen with a hot goalie, so there's nothing better than having one of those heading into Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, yeah.
One thing I think we really want to hear from you about is your transition from full-time midfield to attack. Last year you had a nice year out of the midfield, 14 points, had some points in some big games, but I think you had 9 total goals on the year. Whereas, last week against Harvard, you had 8 goals in an NCAA tournament game, 1 shy of an NCAA tournament record. Can you just talk to us about that transition from midfield to attack?
Yeah, I mean, coming out of high school, I was an attackman. Freshman year of college, I kind of split time between the midfield and attack, but it was just really wherever we needed guys, because at the time, we had Connor Kirst, Kieran Mullins, Adam Charlambidis, guys that are so well versed and so good, and they've been playing in that system for a long time. So they had guys there, and I just needed to play a role. And I think it taught me a lot, and those guys being able to learn from them for a couple of years was super beneficial to my career, because I don't know if I'd be here right now or getting this much success if I wasn't able to get that, I don't know, extra bit of confidence or just learn a few things from them. So it's been extremely beneficial. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I think playing midfield is awesome, and getting shorties last year was awesome. It was a lot of fun, and just being able to move the ball and learn from those guys was amazing. And I'm back in my natural position, I'd like to say, but wherever the team needs me, I'd be happy to go.
Yeah, it's hard to beat out a bunch of 30-year-olds that have been there for 10 years. So, here's to that.
Yeah, those guys are funny.
The Final Four comes with some distractions, and it's kind of everything gets put kind of like the spotlight on you a little bit.
Snapping towels, interviews.
Exactly, bullshit like this. Is Coach been preaching like keep your heads a little bit, because it's gonna start rolling in, like everyone's telling you how good you are, and obviously probably a lot of people that weren't at the beginning of the season are now hopping on your guys' train and what you guys doing. Has he been preaching to kind of keep the same message, or is he fully just like, let's go, we're in the Final Four?
No, yeah, totally. Both of our coaches have the same message. They're like, that was a huge win, Final Four, first time ever getting the Final Four. Enjoy it, relax. But on Monday we're back to work, because getting the Final Four is cool, but getting the championship is even cooler. So I think the message here is like, it's really cool we're in the Final Four. We made history for our program, but the job's not done yet. So we still got a lot of work to do, and we gotta play against a really good team, whether it'll be Cornell or Delaware this upcoming Saturday. So we're happy about it, but we're not satisfied with where we're at right now.
I was having a good time watching your guys' games yesterday. I'll tell you that for free. But if you guys made it to the championship and ended up seeing Big Ten foe Maryland, and your coach was quoted all over the place saying how good they were when they actually showed up to your field. Like, they're good on paper, they're good on film, and then you play against them and they're better than all that.
Yeah.
How would you personally mentally prepare for that game? Because I think, skill and team wise, you guys are up there with them. So I think it's just that confidence that they have that you guys now have gotten through this tournament run.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're a really good team. They have playmakers all over the field. They're a great team offense, team defense. So that's a challenge. But right now we're just one game at a time, and we're not looking at any other team differently. So if that were to happen, it'd be a great challenge. It'd be a great opportunity to prove what we're made of. But right now we just got to worry about our next game in the semifinals. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Love that.
One game at a time is right. One question we ask all of our guests, all of our listeners want to know, what's the hottest song in the Rutgers locker room right now?
Oh, that's an easy one for us. It's Swag Surfing.
Swag Surfing.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. All these kids are like, I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's Swag Surfing. Hands down, we love that song. Every time it comes on in an away field or anything, that's when you know we're here for business, and we all light up. It's amazing.
Hell yeah. A question we throw around in these interviews every time is to kind of give a shout out to a kid that may not get the love on Saturdays, but grinds the whole week and keeps it extremely loose in the locker room, likes to snap it around. He might be in there early, but gets his pads on last, kind of thing. There's any guys you can think of that keep the vibes high?
Yeah, I mean, there's too many to count at this point. There's one of the guys I'd like to shout out. His name's Logan Peters. He's a freshman on our team, number 7. He comes in every single day with a smile on his face. He's the loudest one in the locker room. He's always cracking jokes. I actually make it a priority to sit next to him before games because he keeps me loose. If I don't sit next to him while he's cracking jokes and doing his thing, then I'll be a wreck because I'll be thinking about the game too much. So I like to give a shout out to Logan Peters, Tommy Mendyke, another freshman, and who else? Mason Rickens. That guy, those guys are always making me laugh day in and day out. So I like to spend time with those guys, and they make me happy. It's great.
That's awesome. Shout out to the Young Bucks.
Logan, Tommy, and Mason, the boys.
Yep. The boys.
We'll have to have them on after.
with some hardware next to him.
Absolutely. Yeah, most definitely. Well, Ross, it's been incredible. Thanks so much for coming on. And I know it's a busy time of year, but it's also a time where school's done and you get to chill and really have time for things like this. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you for having me on.
What an interview with Ross there. I just got immaculate vibes from the whole time. Very positive, energetic kid that you could tell you could definitely get behind in a tough practice or in those morning lifts that he was telling us about. But yeah,
something in the water in Portland. These guys. They're
the only ones.
Good vibes everywhere, right?
They're the only ones that answer our DMs. And yeah, no, I'm all here for the Portland energy. I think they're humble. They come from a new lacrosse kind of hotbed, you could say. It's not a traditional hotbed, but on the West Coast.
These kids have, starting with Peter Baum and moving into kind of this new era of seems like Division I contributors and studs all over the Division I landscape. It's turning into a new little hotbed.
Most definitely. Sure. I love the fact that he's just the grinder coffee too, like nothing fancy.
Folgers, baby, Duncan, Folgers,
Tim Hortons even.
It's great.
He's getting that imported from the border. But yeah, What an interview. I had an away game going on, so sorry for that location mix up, but we made it happen. It was a hell of an interview.
Yeah, Ross Scott. You got to love kids really coming on in the back half of their career. He put together a nice sophomore campaign last year, 14 points, and if you look at those 14 points, they came against good in-conference teams. So I'm sure those were timely goals and assists, coming out of the midfield. For him to make that transition to his natural position at attack this year and, have a boatload of points. I'm not sure what his point total is on the year, but 8 goals in an NCAA tournament game, being one of Rutgers' mainstays all year in their first ever Final Four run. You got to give the kid a lot of credit. And I love and have always been a proponent of, unless you bring in some attackman who is a must start, clearly better than everyone else on the roster at attack, or clearly your top 2 or 3 attackmen, or clearly going to be an All-American. I love giving kids the opportunity to kind of grow and blossom from the midfield early in their career. It's a great opportunity for them to kind of get used to the speed of the college game. Okay, this is how I move the ball in college, and it puts them in positions to succeed. He's getting looks against short sticks, on the backside with a short stick flying out to him on a rotation after good ball movement. A great All-American high school attackman is going to be able to do some damage and get comfortable that way. So I think it's a credit to the Rutgers coaching staff too for bringing Ross Scott to this point for sure.
Most definitely. I think it's a way the way the game we see is going. A lot of attackmen coming out of high school are playing midfield early in their career. I think it's just
also
the high
not to
school
interrupt
attack.
you, Kyle,
Yeah.
but I think a contributor of that right now in this particular era in Division I lacrosse is the 5th years and these kids sticking around. You got these kind of old dogs that are down in attack, kind of clogging up the depth chart for an extra year than people might have anticipated. So you got this kind of undersized freshman Ross Scott coming in. He's quick. He's a little water bug. Like, let's toss him up at the midfield. We've got like 3 senior attackmen. 2 of them are 5th years. Like that could be a reason why.
No, absolutely. It's definitely a factor with all these people staying back, but I think it's been kind of coming as this game has turned into more of a skill, less, old school 2-way midi. As soon as the D midi came into play and you could tactically sub off your middies, why wouldn't you put your most offensive skilled players on the field at once?
Totally. Specialization is definitely increased in the last decade or so, no doubt.
Granted, I think there's still place for the big 2-way midi, but you've got to be a real horse. We've seen Virginia have a couple of recent, but other than that, you really don't see it. And Ross Scott had 14 points last year?
Yep.
He leads the Scarlet Knights with 72, 49 goals, 23 assists.
So he's coming off a 14-point sophomore campaign, exploding for 50 goals this year. It's safe to say he'll eclipse the 50-goal mark this coming weekend. You love to see that type of explosion. So the second game at Hofstra on the island wasn't quite as much of a battle. Princeton took an early lead, took control of this game. Not surprisingly, Yale put together a nice little comeback towards the end of the first half. But the second half was really all Princeton. Yale never really got in a rhythm. Princeton's D has me eating my words. I've been dragging them through the mud for the last month or so, and they've really put the clamps on starting in the NCAA tournament, and they looked great starting in the cage with Eric Peters.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that was the biggest knock on Princeton in the regular season because they were giving up crazy numbers defensively. So
biggest knock on the whole Ivy League. Just it's like, where's the defense?
When you're losing 18, 16 games, it's not on anybody but the defense. It puts a lot of pressure on the defensive coordinator. When you have a talented team like Princeton does, with a decent goaltender and essentially a good roster defenseman, and you're simply giving up 5-6 more goals than the average. So clearly, I think it adds to the whole point that you had last week about how fresh they look. I think them missing the Ivy League tournament kind of woke up that defense, and they've really buckled in.
Yeah, it's funny. Obviously you never want to miss your conference tournament, and you're never going to bank on your conference getting 6 teams in. But Penn and Yale looked gassed yesterday at Hempstead. They both played 2 games in the Ivy League tournament, and both had absolute battles last week. Yale against St. Joe's had a total shootout in the rain against a great St. Joe's team, and Penn, had an overtime thriller against an excellent Richmond team, whereas Princeton didn't play in the Ivy League tournament and got maybe the easiest draw of any seeded team with BU. So, I mean, they really benefited from missing the Ivy League tournament and ultimately being the 5th seed, still being the 5th seed after missing their conference tournament, which is just wild. But getting the 5th seed and hosting BU, I mean, Princeton looks fresh. Their defense looks, just great. They look like they kind of licked their wounds, got healthy, probably, threw in a new scheme or two, like just kind of thinking, okay, we've been lit up for the last 2 months. Everybody knows how to score on us. We got to kind of regroup here. And they've clearly done so.
Yeah, no, I think they needed to, or else they'd be out already. I didn't see this Princeton team necessarily making a Final Four run with that kind of defense, but
we knew they had the necessary offensive firepower, though.
Their offense can score on anyone in bunches. That's why I love them winning this game over Yale for many reasons. One, we talked about a new face in the Final Four. Yale's been a staple, and they will be for the next coming years with how young they are. But I think if anyone's going to give Maryland any kind of game, it's going to be Princeton, because they're such a scoring threat, and they have Dodgers everywhere, and they've got finishers to go with them. So for that reason and many reasons, I enjoy that matchup in the next round. So I'm all good with what happened there on the island. Wish it was a tighter game. Wish Brandow kind of showed up. It's a tough weekend for the Stars, for Penn and Yale, but I think they're going to be right back in this situation next year. It's safe to say.
I agree, and I think this particular year, I think aside from Penn with a healthy Sam Hanley and some other guys who were a little banged up healthy, I think Princeton might be the most likely remaining team in the field that has a chance to at least make Maryland somewhat uncomfortable. They got a hot goaltender right now. They got a fresh kind of new look defense and an offense, as Kyle said, who can score on anybody. And they've already played Maryland. It's tough to beat a team twice. I guess it's not tough for Maryland to beat a team twice. They've blown out a few great teams twice, but it's tough to beat a team twice. Princeton gave Maryland a decent game early in the year. I think the final score was 15-11. So I think this is actually, for the fans, probably best case scenario for a semifinal matchup with the likes of this Maryland Terrapin team this year.
Yeah. Jumping into Sunday's games, right off the bat, we had Delaware Cornell, Ben DeLuca versus protege Connor Busick, both Big Red players and coaches.
Gritty game as expected. It's a gritty game.
I thought it was the second best game of the weekend for sure. I think it was really close until the fourth quarter. Delaware couldn't keep an offensive possession to save their life, and they were very sloppy. Penalties late in the game. One that comes up is maybe the game winner. Might have been the 10th goal when they kind of half-ass slid to Piatelli when he kind of had this underneath move that didn't need to go, and it wasn't a full go. They didn't fully slide, and he drew this double team that was just like standing there. They didn't double him. They kind of just slid. No one rotated behind ball, and it was an easy skip through for a dodge off a bad approach, and a great goal from that midfielder. I'm blanking on his name, but yeah, it was plays like that that really
It was
showed
Matt. I think it was Matt Licardi, number
Yeah,
13, right? Sweeping over the
yeah,
top, lefty.
yeah. They've got a couple of those guys that have the same stature. It could have been 11.
Yeah, but it could have been Billy Coyle, but I'm pretty sure it was Matt Licardi catching it lefty, sweeping over the top. But yeah, at any time a defense breaks down, sloppy slide package, what have you, this Cornell offense is going to generate a good look. Like you can't really give them. You got to make Cornell earn their opportunities.
They're so solid.
So solid, and all their kids have such sharp sticks. Just kind of really smart, well-coached lacrosse players. You got to make this Cornell Big Red team earn their goals.
They had some chances down the stretch that they missed.
Delaware. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I was saying Cornell too. Like
okay.
Cornell, it wasn't like Cornell just reached 10. They probably should have. Like looking back at the film, they're probably gonna say we wanted 14. With the curse missing run right in front of the net, that doesn't happen. You saw a lot of opportunities they had in kind of the second and third quarter that they didn't capitalize on, keeping this such a tight game. I thought 81 for Delaware. The poll was just throwing junk all over the field. I know Cam really liked his game against Georgetown.
Insane lumber. Insane.
I thought it was just too much, dude. At certain
I
points, like play the game, but it's just not my personal style. I know a lot of people disagree with me and love that kind of break your arms kind of defense. Personally, I just think it gets you out of position with your feet and your body, and never slows down an offensive player to get hacked in the arm. It's minimal production, and he was doing a lot of that today. And you just kind of saw Delaware fall off looked a little. It's hard to say unconditioned, but I
thought they looked a little gassed.
They looked gassed.
They played a play-in game, and they had a dramatic win against an excellent Georgetown team. That was a real dogfight, 6 days ago. So
absolutely, and but then the last minute hits and they're down 3, and
they generate some looks.
They're like these, yeah, exactly. They kind of woke up. It was too little, too late. If they played with that urgency the whole second half, they would have been in an overtime game at least.
Yeah, I agree. I'm still really impressed with Delaware's top 3 or 4 offensive players. Those kids can really play. Ty Kurtz is disgusting. Number 2 for them, had 5 goals today. 5 of their 8. He's excellent.
He's coming back. Coming back.
JP Ward, number 1 for Delaware, is a sick attackman, like really great quarterback attackman. And Gavin Adler absolutely put the clamps on him today. Really similar to last week with Jack Myers.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of similar players, both nice size, 6'3", 6'4" kids, two-handed quarterbacks. Gavin Adler just absolutely ate their lunch. That kid is disgusting.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game with that one.
Impressive, but before we move on, really impressive job by Connor Busick. Taking that job as a 28-year-old.
We're fans, man.
Great player. Just amazing lacrosse career, amazing lacrosse resume. But to take over such a big time job as a 28-year-old after your program, not under normal circumstances, after Ben DeLuca, who he played against today, a guy I know he has enormous respect for, after he gets dismissed from the program for off-field issues that obviously he had no control over, for Connor Busick to attain that position in that way at such a young age. And then in his first real season as the head coach, because the Ivy League, as we've covered, extensively on the show, got robbed of a season last year. He takes the Cornell Big Red back to the Final Four for the first time since his sophomore year in 2013, where he absolutely went off and really put himself on the map, kind of cemented himself as an all-time Cornell midfielder that year. Kudos to Connor Busick and the job he's done up in Ithaca.
Amen. And then the second game that rolled around in the shoe, you could probably hear crickets by the end of it. It was close
Well,
for about 6 minutes in the first quarter, and then it fell off the rails, and Maryland showed the beast they are.
yeah,
Front to back, like we've talked about, they don't slow down. And the thing is, it's their role players are all better than everyone else's role players.
their role players are second and third and team and honorable mention All Americans. Like
Yeah.
it's
Kyle Long could go scoreless and they'll still put up 15 goals, and he's their first team All American midi. He might even run on the second midfield line.
it's
And,
ridiculous. I'm
and
honestly I don't think I've really seen a team like it. I mean, I'm trying to think of a few. I'm kind of
Maryland's
thinking of
had some dominant teams with Rambo and Heacock, but then defensively,
the
yeah,
depth
no,
here is just like I can't even.
it's true.
These kids score, and you're kind of like, oh, I kind of like I
And it's
forgot they had him.
and it's sometimes with Maryland, they'll have all the All-Americans on the board and everything, but it's the specialty ones that weren't really that good back when they had these amazing teams. Like their short 60 middies might not have been great, and now they're getting drafted in the first round, or they might not have had a face-off guy, and they were losing a lot of face-offs, but had this amazing offense and defense. But like you don't have the ball, it's tough to win these games late in the season. But this year they have the full car. They got everything, and
The caliber of players that only registered 1 or 2 points for them today. Keegan Khan had 2 points. Jack Brennan had 1 point. I love Jack Brennan's game, and he just gets kind of lost in the mix. Daniel Maltz only has 1 goal. Kyle Long 1-1. Puglisi 1-1. I mean, it's absurd.
they had 14 or 15 kids register a goal or an assist.
Against Virginia. This isn't the first round against Vermont. This is the quarterfinal game against, the 2-time defending national champion, and absolutely ran them off the field for the second time this year. So yeah, not much to talk about here. Maryland is the class of Division I lacrosse this year, and we hope that Princeton can make them somewhat uncomfortable for at least a couple quarters on Saturday and give us a game.
One notable thing from the other side of the field, Connor Schellenberger, pointless.
Scoreless. And last week, I still
Pointless.
I stand by this prediction, but last week I predicted that he's going to break the NCAA career tournament goal record. Pointless day in the quarterfinals it doesn't really contribute much to that. But yeah, I mean that just goes to show, we talk a lot about offense on this show, and Maryland has it in spades, but their defense is just as good, if not better.
No joke.
Before, I think one thing I want to note, just from a fan's perspective and a lover of this game, and wanting to put it in the best possible position always, no more quarterfinals at the Horseshoe. No more.
We talked about this to extent last week.
No more.
I could run the PGA Championship today and those games at the same time, because there was just no crowd noise involved due to the amount of acoustics in that stadium built for 100,000 people to get maybe under 5. Saying there was 5,000 people there would be generous. In that massive, colossal stadium is not good for the game.
No, it's not.
It's not. Is it like Cam is from Ohio? Everybody, not sure if we stated that yet, but is it easy to get to? Like, why aren't local high schools just jamming these games? Are they playing right now?
The state tournament is absolutely going on right now. They're not on Sundays though. The state tournament games are on Saturdays and Wednesdays. I think there are definitely probably a lot of high school kids in the stands. But again, it's built for 108,000 people. And also the camera angle in the shoe for these lacrosse games, it only captures the first 2 rows too. So it looks even worse. So you see the peripherals of just empty gray stands, and it's just a gray Columbus afternoon. You could hear a pin drop in the place. the games weren't overly entertaining, so that didn't help. But it doesn't feel big time when you watch a lacrosse game in the shoe on television. And I know from personal experience that it's actually a pretty good game a pretty good venue to watch in person, because there's, as I stated last week, there's very little space between the first row and the sideline.
And it goes straight up in the air. Like if
Yeah.
it's a packed football stadium, everyone can see the field.
Yeah, so there's not really a bad seat in the stadium, and I think it's actually just as from an individual level as a fan, it's actually a good viewing experience when you're there. But we gotta put this game in the best possible position and make it pop on screen on TV. That's where the money is made, and that's where the game is grown. You know, when you see a quarterfinal game at Hofstra, it looks and feels so much bigger time, right? You're seeing people in the stands, people going nuts. It's just, it's too quiet, too gray. No more lacrosse games ever at the Horseshoe. I'm excited that Ohio State has their own lacrosse facility being built and ready for next spring. Anyway,
crazy contract they've had with those games being there. But
I would love to know
next
what's going
weekend
on.
we'll be in the stands. We'll be saying what's up to Ross Scott, as he asked very kindly.
We'll be dapping for sure.
It was like, really, dude, there's going to be some lookers out there wanting some Final Four action, but we'll say what's up.
But he's got his eyes on snapping towels, and we love that.
And hardware. He's got no time for that.
Yep, hardware and snapping towels. Before we get to the Division I games, Kyle, I would love to hear your prediction on the Division III National Championship taking place on Sunday in East Hartford. You've got the Union Dutchmen going to the National Championship for the first time in program history. Union has been a very strong program since its inception, always flirting with the top 10. They are coming out of the Liberty League, playing against the Liberty League champs, who they have a difficult time beating every single year because RIT is the class of Division III lacrosse, but it is Union RIT. Kyle, give me your prediction. They played earlier this year, and RIT beat them 14-13. So could be pretty evenly matched game.
From that little blimp, I think it's gonna, I want to say it's gonna be a good game, but seeing the dismantling RIT did to Tufts, who I thought was the best team in the country in the Division III, I was apparently wrong. Unfortunately, I don't get into the Division III games much. I think their exposure and coverage is a shame. I think it should be a lot higher. But we watched so many Division I lacrosse games this year. I really didn't get a chance to dip into who the studs are in the league and kind of get the pulse on it. But you're a bona fide team if you're beating Tufts by around 10 goals in the semifinals. I wouldn't want to see them, but maybe Union's got that little golden key. They know what to do against this kind of team to make it a tight game and a dogfight. Because if it's that, then it could go any way. But my gut saying RIT's been there a lot. They've got a lot of experience in this game on this weekend. Union might be a little wide-eyed, but they might want revenge, and it is hard to beat a team twice. So I'm interested to hear your predictions. Honestly, I'm going with the Tigers.
So RIT had they put up 26 goals on Tufts today. They had 2 kids with 7 goals. Luke Pilker and Clifford Gatson. Clifford Gatson could be a consideration for honorable mention all name team.
You mean first team?
Yeah. And then they had Quinn Commandant, who had 5 and 1. So
all from Ontario.
Yeah, exactly. They've got some kids who can bury the biscuit for sure. I'm going with the Union Dutchman. I'm an honorary Union
Dutchman.
I am an honorary Union Dutchman. I'm very close with some people who are meaningful to the program. Are
we going to be hitting that on Sunday with these people said?
It's not completely out of the question. I think we'll have to do some diligence on their plans. I play in the fall. I play in the men's league.
Dutchman.
I play in a men's league that is a Union team, so I'm very familiar with the program. I respect Union. I'm an upstate New York college guy, so I respect upstate Lax. The Union Dutchman out of Schenectady, New York. I'm going with Union to
Say that 5 times fast.
shock the world. Union over RIT.
I hope. You know what? Now that I know about this whole storyline with this situation, I think we could swing it, but that'll have to be said. We'll have to see how Saturday goes for us. It's gonna be a long day, and maybe we turn around. Maybe we just shack up in East Hartford for the weekend.
Maybe.
But quick, just to wrap this episode off, it's already been long over scheduled because of this great storylines we have in the tournament. No shock there, and a great interview from Ross Scott. But we got two more games.
We got 3 more games.
Correct, with the Dutchman.
No, the championship, the 2 semifinal games and the championship, Division 1.
Oh yeah, I was talking about this. Yeah. Oh yeah, it is one weekend. Yeah, we got 3 more games. So yeah, I guess this is the last podcast we'll be doing till after the championship.
That is correct.
Unless we sneak one in Sunday.
That is correct. We'll see if we do that. Kyle and I are hoping to do our final episode of the college season together.
Definitely.
In the same room, on the same screen. We'll see how that goes. So we are starting off with the first game of the weekend, which is Maryland Princeton. Kyle, give me your thoughts.
Well, my thoughts are probably going to be pretty similar to what they were last week with the Virginia-Maryland game, as I called the dominant performance, praying for a burner. But the realistic side of me knew what Maryland was about to do to Virginia, as they did in the first game in DC. I think this one's going to be a little closer because of the fact of Princeton offense and how they haven't played, how they're fresher than these teams they've been dismantling, even though Virginia was as fresh as Princeton with their schedule at the end of the year. I'm going Maryland, but hopefully it's a close game because we'll be in the stands, and the last thing we want to see is a blowout.
I have no choice but to ride with the Ivy League here. I've been riding all year long. I'm going with the Princeton Tigers, first Final Four since 2004, when led by one of our favorite commentators and voices of the sport, Ryan Boyle. I hope he's involved next week. I'm going with the Princeton Tigers. I think the Princeton Tigers shocked the world along with the Union Dutchman and beat Maryland 16 to 14.
I think
16 to 14.
Woo! I think
you heard it here.
If they do, the championship will be better.
Electric.
I think if they don't, the championship will be a runaway. Rutgers, Cornell, who do you got? Are we going to see an Ivy League championship for the national championship? And will we have to just coin that the Ivy League championship?
I'm going with Cornell. And the true Ivy League championship is going to take place on Memorial Day. It's going to be Cornell, Princeton. And I'm going with Princeton winning their first national championship since 2001, when Ryan Boyle had the game-winning assist as a freshman against Syracuse. Princeton Tigers. Roll Tigers.
As a fan, that would be nice. Even though Princeton kids just are allergic to our DMs, which is unfortunate.
We hope to have a national champion on the podcast, and if Princeton wins, we're not having a national champion. So
yeah, if any of the other 3 teams win, we'll have a national champion on. But there's something in the water in New Jersey that's not with the snapping gang, but. The realistic side of me has to come on, and I think Cornell is going to edge. Do I? See, ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens here on Snapping Towels. We're splitting hairs here. Both these teams are legit and
You get
white
emotionally
hot.
invested with somebody you just interviewed. You know, it's hard to make these picks. It's really hard.
It is, and I was going with Cornell, but I'm not. I think Rutgers is going to take them. It's going to be a burner. That's going to be the game. I
That's going to
think
be a phenomenal game.
that's going to be an insane game, and I'm going Maryland Rutgers, a Big Ten championship
Wow.
in the finals, and we're going to go with Maryland to take the cake as they just steamroll this year. So we've got one contrast the other. I think it makes for a great weekend, and I know personally I can't wait to be there in the atmosphere. I haven't seen a good college lax game in a long time, and I'm excited.
Can't wait. Snapping Towels taking their first Final Four, first of many. We will see you next weekend. That'll do it for episode 17. Thank you for listening as always, however you may be doing it.